Imagine, just for a second, waking up in a room full of people, and they're all looking at you with this absolute, undeniable love and trust.
Right, like they know you inside and out.
Exactly. They know your habits, how you take your key.
Yeah.
They clearly expect you to lead them, to save them, really, to be their hero.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure right out of the gate.
Right. And as you look back at their expectant, hopeful faces, this cold dread just like washes over you because you realize something terrifying.
You don't know who they are.
You have absolutely no idea who any of these people are. You don't even know your own name, You're a complete stranger in a life that is supposedly yours.
It creates this incredibly isolating, deeply unsettling environment. It takes that usual comfort of, being surrounded by allies, and it just completely weaponizes it against the protagonist.
Yeah, that sheer visceral discomfort is exactly what we are plunging into for this deep dive. Today, we're looking at a huge stack of community threads, animation analyses, and lore breakdowns surrounding a massive pop culture moment.
It really is taking over the internet right now.
It totally is. We're focusing on the anime series Re:Zero Starting Life in Another World, specifically Season 4, Episode 8, and the reaction across the fandom. I mean, from Reddit theory boards to YouTube video essays, it is incredibly intense.
Oh, yeah. The prevailing sentiment everywhere is just Re:Zero is finally back.
Yep.
Like the core, terrifying essence of the show has returned.
Yeah, exactly.
You rarely see this level of detailed, visceral community reaction centered around a single television episode, especially one that is this emotionally grueling to sit through,
Yeah.
It's clearly struck a very raw nerve.
Completely. And I want to say right up front to you listening, even if you aren't caught up on this show or, even if you don't typically watch anime at all, this is a narrative study you will definitely want to hear.
Oh, absolutely. It transcends the medium.
It really does. What we are looking at today is basically a masterclass in psychological horror. It's a breakdown of how to dismantle a character's safety net completely. So, okay, let's unpack this. Looking at the lore breakdowns in our sources, how did the narrative actually arrive at this point of, total community shock?
Well, to really grasp the impact of Episode 8, we have to look at the architectural buildup of the recent story arcs. Re:Zero had been heavily focused on expansive world building, intricate character development, and really dense political tension.
Right, it would gotten pretty vast.
Yeah, huge. The protagonist, Subaru, he was forming alliances, engaging in these complex strategic maneuvers, and exploring the wider lore of the universe with this massive cast of characters. It was very grand and sweeping.
It almost sounds like a political thriller or, I don't know, a massive high fantasy epic at that point.
It very much was. But that naturally shifted the tone away from the show's origins. What Episode 8 does is it takes all of that complex, sprawling narrative architecture and just violently rips it away.
Just totally strips it down.
Exactly. It strips away the politics, the grand alliances, the world-saving strategies, and it focuses entirely on primal fear. It forces the story right back into intense vulnerability.
And the mechanism it uses to do that is this massive twist that fundamentally breaks Subaru. I mean, he loses his memory.
Complete wipe.
Yeah, he forgets his suffering, his friends, his enemies, his achievements, and his own identity. It's all just erased.
It's the total erasure of the mental scaffolding that has literally kept him alive. And we should probably define how survival actually works for him in this universe, just for context.
Yeah, let me jump in and clarify that mechanic for anyone unfamiliar because it's so crucial. So Subaru doesn't have super strength or the ability to shoot lightning or anything.
Right, he's basically just a regular guy.
Exactly. His core power is that when he is killed, he respawns. He wakes up in an alternate timeline in a previous save point, very similar to a video game.
Which sounds cool until you realize what that actually entails.
Yeah, because he has to physically experience agonizing deaths over and over again. He has to memorize the traps and enemy movements just to figure out how to survive and protect his friends.
Which means his greatest weapon was never magic. His armor was always his experience.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it was the mental maturity, the resilience, and the intricate relationships he built through enduring those countless painful deaths and resetting the timelines. His real power was his knowledge of who to trust and how to navigate an unbelievably cruel world.
Right. And the sources I was reading framed this in a way that really stuck with me. It's it's like spending 100 hours in a grueling, punishingly difficult video game, really.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah. You're suffering to level up your character. You're carefully making all the right choices. You finally build this loyal, powerful party, and suddenly, boom, Your save file is corrupted.
The absolute worst feeling.
But it's worse, because you don't get sent back to a safe title screen. You are still trapped right in the middle of the hardest, most dangerous endgame dungeon.
Yes.
You're completely defenseless with a level 1 mindset, surrounded by high-level threats you don't even remember how to fight.
And what's fascinating here is that by erasing his memories, the story mercifully, or mercilessly rather, reverts him to the scared, confused boy who first appeared from a convenience store way back in season 1.
It just nullifies seasons of hard-earned, agonizing character growth in a single stroke.
It really does.
I have to be honest, though, when I was reading through these plot summaries and hit the words amnesia plot, my eyes immediately rolled.
Oh, sure. It's a huge cliche.
Right. In television, amnesia is usually such a cheap writer's trick. It feels like a plot device to just stall the narrative or
Right.
create artificial misunderstanding.
Or drag out a romantic subplot for another season.
Exactly. The classic, oh no, I forgot we were in love, soap opera trope. So you're telling me this isn't just filler to pad out the runtime?
No, it's a completely fair skepticism because the trope is incredibly overused. But the distinction here lies in how the series weaponizes that amnesia to dismantle the protagonist's safety.
Okay, weaponizes how, exactly?
Well, it's not used for romantic misunderstandings. It's used to isolate him in a crowded room. Think about the social dynamic here. In season 1, he was innocent, and everyone around him was a stranger.
Right.
The world didn't expect anything from him because they didn't know him.
A standard fish out of water setup, basically.
Right. But this new situation is the cruelest possible reversal of that. Now, he is surrounded by people who know him intimately. They trust him deeply based on the hero he has proven himself to be over all these seasons.
Oh, wow. So they expect him to have all the answers.
Exactly. They have massive expectations of him. But to Subaru, peering out from behind his own eyes, they are all entirely unknown faces.
That feels like the ultimate imposter syndrome. It's like, waking up in an operating room, holding a scalpel, and everyone around the table is looking at you because they think you're the world's greatest surgeon.
That is a terrifying analogy, but yes.
Right, like they're waiting for you to save a life, but you don't even know what a scalpel is. The crushing weight of that expectation combined with your own total ignorance, it would be paralyzing.
That is a very accurate way to visualize it. The show forces the viewer to sit in the sheer, suffocating terror of having someone pour their heart out to you, expecting you to be their savior, while you don't even know their name. You are trapped in an identity you just cannot access.
The community threads highlight a very specific, heartbreaking detail to illustrate this, actually. It involves the character Beatrice.
Oh, yeah. That scene is devastating.
It really is. For context for you listening, Subaru and Beatrice share a profoundly deep bond. It's a relationship forged in the absolute fires of shared trauma and ultimate trust. They have bled for each other, literally and figuratively.
They've been through so much together.
And the sources point out the specific moment in the episode where Beatrice is interacting with him. She looks at him and realizes something is fundamentally broken. The connection is just dead on his end.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Exactly. And Subaru just stares back at her in total confusion. He feels absolutely zero weight of their history.
The agony of that dynamic is palpable. It's devastating for Beatrice to realize the person she trusts most in the world is effectively gone. But it's equally terrifying for Subaru.
Right, because he's just so confused.
He's being looked at with an intensity and emotional demand he cannot fathom or fulfill. It's a profound violation of their shared history.
It creates this intense social anxiety, but that anxiety is like immediately compounded by the literal survival mechanics of this world, because we have to shift from the narrative setup to how this dread is actually delivered to the audience.
Execution of it all.
Right. True horror in ReZero isn't jump scares or, big scary monsters with sharp teeth. It's a visceral, creeping anxiety. And that brings us back to his return by death respawn ability. Dying over and over is already unimaginable torture.
Experiencing death and respawning is traumatic enough when you possess your full faculties. But Episode 8 makes this infinitely more terrifying by removing the context.
Oh, because he doesn't know why he's dying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Subaru dies and respawns now, he is doing so without knowing what is happening to him.
He doesn't know why he is fighting, who just killed him, or what the rules of his reality even are.
He is simply thrust into a cycle of pain and death as a blank slate. Experiencing agonizing death and sudden rebirth without the memories to make sense of it or, the memories of the people he is trying to save to anchor him, it would mentally break any human being in record time.
It takes away the one thing that made it bearable.
Yes. It reduces his core mechanic from a strategic, albeit painful, reset button to pure, incomprehensible torture.
And the community analysis of how this is actually presented on screen is fascinating. Studio White Fox, they're the animation studio behind the show, they made some very specific directorial choices to elevate this from just a sad story beat to a genuinely uncomfortable viewing experience.
They really stepped up their game for this episode.
They did. The analyses point to the visual framing first. They use these agonizingly slow camera movements. The lighting is incredibly dark and oppressive. And the pacing is intentionally off, you know?
Yeah, holding the shots just a bit too long.
Exactly. They hold on a shot just a second too long during interactions. You're left staring at Subaru's terrified, empty facial expressions, and it just makes your skin crawl.
The visual direction is undeniably effective, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the most brilliant choice Studio White Fox made regarding suspense actually involves the audio, or more accurately, the distinct lack of it.
Oh, right.
There is an almost total absence of background music during these critical, disturbing scenes.
Which is incredibly rare for anime. Usually there is a sweeping orchestral score or like a fast-paced synth track telling you exactly how you are supposed to feel at every given second.
They hold your hand emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. If it's a sad scene, the strings are weeping. If it's a scary scene, there are heavy, ominous drums.
Anime relies very heavily on those musical cues to dictate audience emotion. So, by removing the music and relying on pure, awkward silence, the studio actively removes the audience's emotional safety net.
It leaves you totally exposed.
It does. The psychology behind this choice in thriller filmmaking is well documented. When you are presented with silence in a tense, unpredictable situation, your brain cannot remain passive. It actively scrambles to fill that void. And in doing so, your brain manufactures its own fear.
Oh, wow. The silence forces you to sit with the discomfort of Subaru's reality. It makes the psychological horror deeply intimate because it's literally happening in your own head.
Exactly. It's the difference between a jump scare and true dread.
Yeah, a jump scare startles you for a second, but that thick, unbroken silence, it just stays in your bones long after the scene ends.
It creates an atmosphere of inevitability. You know something awful is happening, but without the musical cues, you have no idea when the tension will actually break.
Man. And all of this atmospheric dread leads to the ending of the episode, which ends on a cliffhanger that has generated an incredible amount of community theory crafting.
Their Reddit threads are on fire right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the cliffhanger strongly signals that simply forgetting his friends isn't the bottom of the barrel. It's merely the beginning of a much deeper, more profound distortion of his reality.
The amnesia isn't just a missing file, right? It's a symptom of a larger systemic collapse within his mind.
Right. And based on the lore breakdowns and theory threads we're looking at, there are 3 major theories currently dominating the conversation about what is actually happening to him. Let's walk through the mechanics of these.
Sure, let's dive in.
Okay, so theory number 1 suggests that Subaru's identity isn't just lost, it's actively splitting or distorting. The community points out that his consciousness might be fracturing under the sheer weight of the accumulated trauma.
Which, honestly, would align with the psychological realities of the show. The human brain can only endure so much psychological damage before it attempts to protect itself.
Like a defense mechanism.
Exactly. In this theory, the amnesia is a severe dissociative break. The mind is compartmentalizing the trauma so aggressively that it's just walled off his entire identity in the process.
Wow. Okay, then there is theory number 2. His memories aren't just misplaced by his own mind protecting itself. They are being intentionally manipulated, surgically removed, or altered by an outside malicious force.
A very sinister possibility.
Yeah. Someone or something in this world is treating his mind like a chessboard.
This theory operates on the idea of external violation. If an outside force recognizes that Subaru's experience is his only weapon, the most strategic way to defeat him isn't to kill him, since, he just respawns, but to blind him.
That is so dark.
It is. By surgically removing his memories, this external force effectively neutralizes the biggest threat on the board.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense within the lore. But then we get to theory number 3, which seems to be the one giving the community the most anxiety overall.
Oh, definitely.
The theory is that he isn't just forgetting things temporarily or being manipulated. He is gradually losing his original self entirely. The core essence of who Subaru is being permanently erased from existence.
And if we look closely at the mechanics of that third theory, the implications are the most dire, because it strikes at the very heart of how he survives.
How so?
Well, if Subaru completely loses his original self, if he fundamentally forgets why he is fighting, what his core values are, and who he loves, then his return by death ability becomes functionally useless.
Wait, I guess I'm a little stuck on something here. Even if he forgets who he is or why he loves these people, he still physically resets when he dies, right?
Yes, the loop still triggers.
Doesn't that mean he technically survives anyway? Like his body still responds, so isn't he still safe from actual death?
He resets physically, yes. But to what end? Let's walk through the actual mechanic of survival in this world. Survival in ReZero is not merely about avoiding a fatal blow.
Right.
It requires immense, almost superhuman willpower to navigate the incredibly complex social dynamics and physical traps of the world. He has to solve intricate, deadly puzzles with each life.
Oh, right. He has to convince people to trust him, figure out who the traitor is, map out the enemy's attack pattern. It requires intense active engagement.
Precisely. Survival is impossible without the will or the specific reason to survive. If he loses the self that cares about Beatrice or the self that wants to protect the people in that room, he has zero motivation to solve the puzzles of his deaths.
Because why bother, right?
Exactly. Why endure the agony of figuring out a trap if you don't care about the people the trap will kill?
Oh, I see. Without the motivation, he wouldn't try to change the timeline. He'd just let it happen.
He would become a completely passive victim. He would be endlessly dying, feeling the pain of every single death, but without the drive or the emotional tether required to change the outcome.
That is horrifying.
He would be trapped in a perpetual loop of suffering. He would be physically immortal, but psychologically dead.
Physically immortal, but psychologically dead. Man, that completely changes the stakes of the entire series. It's no longer about whether his body can survive the monsters. It's about whether his soul can survive the collapse of his own mind.
It reframes the entire conflict. The enemy isn't an external monster anymore. The enemy is the void taking over his consciousness.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at the sheer impact of Season 4, Episode 8 through the lens of all these community analyses, we are looking at a narrative that has firmly declared its intentions.
It really has.
It isn't a standard high fantasy or action show. It is a grueling, intimate, psychological survival story. It's an exploration of identity, the terrifying fragility of trust, and the deep, irreversible consequences of a mental breakdown.
And that is precisely why fans are calling this a return to old ReZero, and why it matters so much. It is a powerful reminder of what makes deeply compelling storytelling.
Absolutely.
The most gripping narratives don't rely on flashy magical battles, or overpowered heroes, or simple good versus evil dynamics. They rely on testing the absolute limits of deeply flawed, vulnerable human beings.
They make it human.
Yes. By stripping Subaru of his memories, the creators have brought him down to his most defenseless core. They've created a scenario that is universally empathetic, because it touches on our own deep-seated fears of losing ourselves and our connections to the people we love.
It forces you to put yourself in his shoes, not the shoes of an action hero with a sword, but just a guy standing in a room realizing his own mind is turning against him.
It's the ultimate nightmare.
It really is. And that brings us to the close of our analysis today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering question to ponder on your own. It builds on everything we've unpacked regarding Subaru's collapse, but it applies directly to the human experience. A little food for thought.
Exactly. Think about this. If our entire identity, our courage, our moral compass, and our deepest bonds with other people are solely forged by the memories we hold and the traumas we've overcome, who do we actually become when all of that is suddenly stripped away?
It's a chilling thought.
Are we still fundamentally the same person underneath it all, or are we just an empty shell wearing our own face? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Stay thrilled and trust no reality.